In this video, we are going to look at number 8. So number 8 says, assume the hypothesis is fake. What is the truth value of the conditional? Assume the hypothesis is true. What would be a counterexample? Okay, so they give us a rectangle has an area of 12 meters squared. Then it has a side lengths of 3 meters and 4 meters. Okay, so they want us to find the truth value. So anytime you're finding the truth value of something and they're telling you to assume the hypothesis is false, so you're assuming the hypothesis is false, or that the conclusion is false, assume the hypothesis is true. You always want to go through and you want to pull up your truth table. And so I pulled up the truth table on the right, and it even says up there, it says, find the value of the truth of a conditional. And so we see that up here in example 2, kind of where my little weird circle thing is, find the truth value of a conditional. So whether or not this would be helpful, it's always good to pull it up because you want to find out if it is going to be helpful. So it says, assume the hypothesis is false. So a good place to be is to figure out what is the hypothesis and what is the conclusion. And so with this setup, they already have it written as a conditional, because check out that if, and then, so it's already written as a conditional. So that means that our hypothesis is a rectangle has an area of 12 meters square. So we're going to assume that that hypothesis is false. So if the hypothesis let's take a look over at our truth table. Here's our hypothesis. Is this not going to work for me? Nope, it's not. Sorry about that. I'm taking so much time. I don't know if you can see my little round thing. So the hypothesis is here and says assume the hypothesis is false. So let's go down to the 2 examples where the hypothesis is false. So when the hypothesis is false and the conclusion is true, our conditional is still true. If the hypothesis is false and the conclusion is false, the conditional is still true. So no matter what, this is true. And it's asking us for the first question, it's saying, what is the truth value of the conditional? So we found that no matter what, if the hypothesis is false, that the conditional is true. So we don't even have to really dig into this example here of the rectangle. We can just say that, well, if the hypothesis is false, then the conditional is true according to what? To the truth table. So that was a nice one, right? So once again, you know that you definitely want to use your truth table. If it's telling you to do something like assume the hypothesis is false or the conclusion is false, always go back to that table. So that's one part of it. Okay, now the next part says, what is the truth value of the oh, just kidding. We just found that the truth value of the conditional, it's right here. Truth value is that it is true. The next one, it says, assume the hypothesis is true. What would be a counterexample? So we're assuming that a rectangle has an area, excuse me, excuse me. So we're assuming a rectangle has an area of 12 meters squared. And they're guiding us in the direction. They're saying, what would a counterexample be? So let's draw some rectangles. So remember, counterexample proves that it is false. And so let's consider this one. If we had a rectangle with side length 3 and side length 4, is the area equal to 12? Yes. Because to find the area of a rectangle, you just multiply the side lengths. But are there any other rectangles we can draw that will have the side lengths of, or any rectangles we could draw or build that will have the area of 12? So we want an area of 12. Well, to find the area of a rectangle, you multiply the side length. So what other factors are there of 12? What about 12, a side length of 12 by 1? That has an area of 12. There's one more we can draw, another rectangle that we could draw. What is that other rectangle that we know is going to have an area of 12? Because we're going to multiply the value of one side length by the other to get the area. What other two numbers can you multiply together to get 12? 2 and 6. So we've done a little bit of work here because we need to find a counterexample. And so, because this one says, if a rectangle has an area of 12 meters squared, then it has side lengths of 3 meters and 4 meters. Well, those aren't the only rectangles that have an area of 12. We also found that these two do. So here are our counterexamples. Let's go ahead and write them out. Let me zoom out here. Okay. So it says a rectangle has an area of 12 meters. We're going to write a counterexample. A counter example includes rectangles with side length, and it just needs a counterexample, so just one counterexample. We do have two here, but they just want us to state one of them. So which one do you want to state? Do you want to state has a rectangle with side lengths 1 and 12 or 2 and 6? Which one are you choosing? I'm choosing 2 and 6. 2 and 6. So let's go back to number A. Let's make sure that we've answered all the questions. It said assume the hypothesis is false, that a rectangle doesn't have an area of 12 meters squared. Well, when we're told to assume, again, that a hypothesis or conclusion is false, pull up your truth table and use that truth table to double check, because we see here that even if your hypothesis is false, your conditional will always be true. So this is one of your answers. So if a hypothesis is false, then the conditional is true according to the truth table. Okay, next question says, assume that the hypothesis is true. What would be a counterexample? So a rectangle has an area of 12 meters squared was true. A counterexample includes that a rectangle with side lengths 2 and 6, because we found that this conditional is not true, because it's stating that that rectangle that has an area of 12 meters would only have the side lengths of 3 and 4. But we found instead that it could have the side lengths of 1 and 12 or 2 and 6. So we know that this conditional, if we assume the hypothesis is true, is in fact, this conditional is false because we found a counterexample. Okay, that is number 8 from assignment 4.